The ending of The Last of Us Part 2 has been polarizing, to say the least. Two of the most common grievances I've heard are that Abby never expresses remorse over torturing Joel to death, and both Abby and Ellie's decisions to spare one another come across as unbelievable. In this video, I will address both grievances and provide a potential solution. Before we go any further, I want to warn you that this solution keeps almost all of the game's core narrative intact. So if you're expecting a total rewrite, you will be disappointed. With that in mind, let's discuss the first complaint. Abby never expresses remorse for killing Joel. Although I've come to understand Abby's motivation, I do think her lack of explicit remorse or guilt over literally torturing one of the most beloved characters in gaming may be too great an obstacle for some players to overcome. According to an article in the Harvard Business Review, the reason people don't often change their initial impressions is that our brain is optimized to conserve energy. If there's not a compelling reason to reevaluate something, then we won't. For many players, our initial, overwhelmingly negative first impression of Abby proved too great a barrier to overcome. And the fact that Naughty Dog wasn't exactly subtle about getting us to like Abby proved that reverse psychology is a very real phenomenon. I do think it's clear Abby didn't find the catharsis she was looking for after killing Joel, instead feeling far more hollow than she expected. But I don't think the act of pursuing revenge destroys her the same way it does Ellie. After all, at the end of Part 2, Ellie is entirely alone, whereas Abby still has Lev. But how could Abby believably show remorse over killing Joel? The answer is that she could learn Joel was Ellie's father figure. Naughty Dog goes to great lengths to show us that Ellie and Abby aren't so different. They both decide to seek revenge for the deaths of their father or father figure. They're both acquainted with pregnant women. They're both part of a love triangle. The list goes on. The problem is that while the player knows how much they have in common, Ellie and Abby don't. As a result, some players feel that when Abby and Ellie decide to spare each other's lives, it feels more like plot armor than it does a genuine, believable decision. If instead, Abby later discovered that she killed Ellie's father figure, Abby's decision to spare Ellie would be more believable and solidify how far Abby has come as a character. Similarly, if Ellie discovered that Joel killed Dr. Anderson during her journey to Santa Barbara, her decision to spare Abby would feel more believable as well. We know from Ellie's journal entries that she already doubts her decision to pursue Abby to Santa Barbara. Discovering that she and Abby have both lost their fathers could then be the catalyst for Ellie's decision to spare Abby. In theory, I actually like the idea of having a revenge story end with both parties choosing to begin the process of letting go and possibly even forgiving one another. I like that Abby decides to prioritize Lev's needs over her own desire for retribution. And I like the idea that after finally letting go of her revenge quest, the only place for Ellie to go is up. The problem, I feel, is that Ellie's decision to forgive Abby is followed by Ellie seemingly losing everything. Though, as I discuss in another video, it's possible her ending isn't as dismal as it first appears. If Ellie's decision to forgive Abby was instead followed by Ellie healing from her trauma and reconnecting with those she loves, I think some players would respond more positively. In other words, I strongly feel that Ellie's decision to move on should be accompanied by a positive result. Again, though, I want to emphasize that a more hopeful ending is possible in the future if Naughty Dog decides to continue Ellie's story. I'm just going by what's canon currently. To conclude then, I do think that by having Abby show remorse over killing Joel, as well as having both Abby and Ellie discover how similar their experiences of losing their fathers really are, the ending of The Last of Us Part 2 would be more believable. Even with these changes, I think the ending would still be polarizing. Many people would still feel it's unbelievable for each of the game's protagonists to spare one another, given their singular focus with bloodthirst and revenge. Still others would maintain that Part 2 shouldn't have been created in the first place. But if nothing else, I feel these changes would be a step in the right direction towards Naughty Dog's overarching message of letting go of hate, grief, and the all-consuming thirst for revenge. Furthermore, I feel that by having Abby and Ellie come to understand one another's motivations the same way the player does, would go a long way towards making their decision to spare one another feel less like plot armor and more like genuine character growth. I want to conclude this video by adding that while I was frustrated by elements of the game's narrative, it did make me think in a way few other games have. Let me know what your thoughts are about this potential change in the comment section below.